When I saw the new reworked Trickster Ascendancy, I was very excited for the many different possibilities and builds I can make with it. Although one really stood out due to Trickster being the only Ascendancy in the game right now that increases a specific charge count by 2, and that is Frenzy Charge. And what goes well with Frenzy Charges? Well, Flicker Strike. Theoretically, the Ascendancy has everything it needs to be a better Flicker Striker than an actual Raider. And rightfully so, we got over 20 million damage with quite impressive defenses. We got Spell Suppression backed up by Max Block, that alongside a decent amount of armor and evasion. We also got defensive layer from the Ascendancy like 40% less damage taken, which rotates between hits and damage over time. That alongside reducing monsters' action speed by 8%, which stacks with chill effect, making you almost twice as fast compared to them. Alright, here is the order of our Ascendancy. First we begin with Swift Killer. It's +2 to maximum frenzy charges as stated before. Pretty straightforward. Next we take One Step Ahead. This node is the one responsible for hard-setting monsters' action speed to a maximum of 92%. It can be reduced to less than that with something like chill effect. Finally, this node increases our action speed by 8%, which is equivalent to Tailwind buff. And yes, this does stack with Tailwind itself. From here we take Polymath. This node increases our total damage by 3% for each different type of mastery we have allocated. And, get ready for this, we got 12 masteries, 11 of which are different in this build. That's the 3% more damage, effectively making this Ascendancy node twice as better compared to other nodes in this game. We also get to recover 11% of our life, mana and energy shield whenever we kill something in this build. This is a crazy recovery from simple Ascendancy node. Last but not least we got Heartstopper. This node gives us 40% less damage taken, which rotates between damage over time and then damage from hits. Yes, it is inconsistent, but on average it's 20% less damage taken from all sources, which is something. I'm pretty sure GGG will rework this node in the future, similar to how they reworked Pendulum of Destruction Elementalist node, simply because it is inconsistent. Alright, now with the Ascendancy out of the way, let's talk about passive tree. Our passive tree focuses on many things like life, cold damage, crit nodes, block nodes, spell suppression, sword attack nodes, and accuracy. That alongside every frenzy charge available for us to take on the passive tree. Now once you are high level enough, consider investing into a large cluster jewel that adds the following notables: Feed the Fury, Martial Prowess, and Fuel the Fight. Next, for mastery choices, I will be mentioning them in order of their importance. We got +50 to maximum life, 10% increased maximum life, Precision has 100% increased mana reservation efficiency, Critical Strike chance is increased by chance to suppress spell damage, plus 25% to critical strike multiplier against unique enemies, 40% of physical damage converted to cold, 1% chance to block attack per 5% chance to block on our shield, 3% increased attack damage per 5% chance to block attack damage, 25% increase the effect of our marks, exposures we inflict applies at least 18% reduction to affected resistance, +3 to melee strike range with swords, and 3% increased damage per frenzy, power and endurance charge we have. And that was it for our passive tree. Now let's talk about items. Flicker Strike builds are generally expensive, but there is a way to go around that to some degree. And that is by utilizing Fist to Cold conversion rather than getting an expensive Forbidden Shaco with level 35 Ice Bite, which goes for multiple mirrors this league. Just get a decent sword with as much attack speed and physical damage as possible. Doing this is cheaper as it allows us to scale our damage with physical modifiers, which are common to find anywhere. To take advantage of this, I bought a Circle of Guilt unique ring with +1 to maximum frenzy charge implicit. This one goes for the same price as any +1 frenzy charge ring without any damage modifiers, however this one gives us lots of physical damage if we are running Herald of Purity, which we are doing in this build. Our second ring is just a simple stats filler with life, attributes and resistances. Having damage on it is optional. For our offhand, we got a shield with lots of life, block chance, 1% increased damage per 1% chance to block attack damage, increased block chance, and a chance to shock attackers on block, which is an easy way to force enemies to take more damage when they hit us in this build. For our chest, we got Feral's Fur. This item is great for when you are stacking frenzy charges. It allows us to run Aspect of the Cat with no reservation, and makes it so that we gain our maximum number of frenzy and power charges whenever we gain Aspect of the Cat buff, which is like all the time. That alongside giving us a decent amount of life, armor and evasion, which is nice. Our next item is a rare helm with Aspect of the Cat crafted on it. You can deterministically add Aspect of the Cat via beast crafting to rare items, but it takes up a suffix mod slot to do that. Aside from that, we got life, crit multi, a good resistance roll, and +1 to maximum power charges, which is optional. Make sure to craft all of this on a base with Flicker Strike deals 9% increased damage per frenzy charge enchant. Also make sure to socket less duration support in your helm to accelerate the process of generating frenzy charges. Our next item is a pair of gloves with strike skills targets to additional nearby enemies. That alongside +1 to maximum frenzy charges, attack speed, and most importantly, crafted 25% of physical damage converted to cold. This is required to reach 100% conversion. Unfortunately, all three prefixes are essential here, which leaves us no space to have life. Next we got a decent rare amulet that has life, crit chance, crit multi, flat fizz, and physical damage gained as cold if possible. Make sure to anoint sovereignty on your amulet as it allows us to fit a second herald in this build. Next for our belt, we got a pretty straightforward belt with as much life and damage as humanly possible. You don't need to have increased life recovery here, however it's quite useful as it applies to leech effects as well. And yes, before you ask, you can use Headhunter in this build. I personally wanted to have good single target damage and that's why I went with the rare belt instead. Last but not least, we got a pair of boots with movement speed, tailwind, elusive, onslaught, and life. Just like with every other build you play, this lot can be the most expensive one as it directly impacts how fast your build can go. Just get whatever boots you can afford with as many of these mods as possible depending on your budget. And yeah, that was it for our items. Now let's talk about gems that goes inside of them. For our main 6 link we have Flicker Strike, Awakened Melee Fizz, Awakened Elemental Damage with Attacks, Awakened Cold Penetration, Awakened Multi-Strike, and Divergent Inspiration. Feel free to use the non-awakened version of these gems if you are on a budget, except for Awakened Cold Penetration. It is required for this build. Next we got our primary reservation setup. It's a 4 link and it contains Hatred, Herald of Purity, Herald of Ice, and level 3 Enlighten. Next we got another 4 link setup. This one contains level 20 Precision, Leap Slam, faster attacks, and Void Manipulation to prevent Leap Slam damage from being reflected back to us. This is important in LA Reflect maps. Our last gem setup contains Mark on Hit, Anomalous Assassin's Mark, and Summon Ice Golem. And that was it for our mandatory gem setups. Feel free to use whatever sockets you have left for leveling gems or maybe for a cast when damage taken setup. Alright, now that we are done with our gem links, let's talk about jewels. For our Watcher's Eye we have 40% of physical damage converted to cold while affected by hatred, and 15% cold penetration while also affected by hatred. Now this combination of mods can be a little bit expensive, thus you can ignore the cold penetration part if you are on a budget. Aside from Watcher's Eye, there aren't really any other unique jewels in this build. Hence, you'll be using all of your remaining sockets for normal rare jewels like this one. Prioritize having life and capping your elemental resistances first. Then its damage modifiers all the way like increased crit multiplier and attack speed. Now for Bandit's quest, we are going to help Alira as usual. As for Pantheons, we go for the Soul of the Blind King for its freeze immunity and the Soul of Grothcall for its additional physical mitigations. And yeah, that was it for our fastest Flicker Trickster build for this league. If you guys have enjoyed this video, then make sure to let me know in the comment section and maybe even subscribe so you don't miss out on any future build guides like this one. My name is Phoenix and I will see you all in the next video.